Hello, hello. Let's jump into this. I'm already a minute late. Hello, I am Mayor Watt. This is ohmTown.com, and this is the ohmTown Daily News Show that's powered by ohmTown.com. If you're curious about that, go over to ohmTown.com, become a citizen. What is ohmTown? I say it every time I kick off a show. It's a news aggregator that reaches out and grabs a list of sources that are conducive to my line of work, which basically involves advising people in a broad spectrum of areas. I speak to them from the perspective of business, technology, and society. That's my academic pursuit. That's my professional pursuit. And thus, I do the show now. I've already got about 12 articles. You might hear some background music. It's actually spooky music for Halloween. I don't know what I'm going to do when it's not Halloween. I might leave some background music playing just so that there isn't just me prattling on. But at any rate, the news aggregator. Oh, and I moved my mic up. I had been told that it sounded like I was a little bit too distant, so now I'm kind of eating the microphone. You can tell me if you hear breath sounds or me sniffling. I know this is inside baseball, but this is how the sausage is made, and I don't edit my audio for the podcast or the video. If you're catching this and you're away from the real stream that's over on Twitch, then stop on by and come hang out. Let me know what you think of this. I have a broad spectrum of news that I cover, and I don't have a problem really with giving out advice. If somebody has a question or a comment or something going on in their world, I vamp most of my show, so while I do have articles, I don't need to stick to them. And I try and stay as long as possible. So I'd like to do 8-hour shows, but I just can't right now because of work. That said, let's get into today's shoe. The very first article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel. And if you hit !S, and then what I'm going to do is submit the article, and it'll get thrown into a thing called Showbot. So if you hit ! And then Showbot, it'll tell you where you can go. Well, you can go to ohmTown.showbot.tv and vote on the articles that you think are interesting. And I'll keep that in mind when I'm going through my articles, although I do have sometimes a tendency to grab something that has a particular message. At any rate, this one is business related. I talked to over 100, and it's not me, it's the article writer. This is sourced from CNBC.com. I talked to over 100 women leaders, the top 3 things I learned about what makes them successful. Let's go over to the article. Julia Boorstin is the author of this article, again at CNBC.com. And they say they were inspired to write their new book, When Women Lead, by the odds-defying stories of phenomenal women or female leaders that they've met and interviewed over the years as a reporter at CNBC and as at Fortune magazine before that. And the 120 plus mix of CEOs, founders, and VC investors are, by definition, exceptional in the male-dominated business world. Yeah, I can agree to that. And the author wanted to both share their stories and also find takeaways in their successful strategies. So let's find out what those are. It says the best leaders are most authentic to themselves. So the old saying of "to thine own self be true" kind of holds some weight in the male-dominated business world, I suppose. Although I'm of the mind that anybody who's just skilled at running a business should be able to lead and run a business. I mean, It's about the knowledge, skills, and abilities. Unfortunately, we live in a world where nepotism and good old boys clubs and the plurality of other misogynist issues tends to become manifest, particularly in business. So they talk about some things in this article and in this section, but really business leaders are most authentic to themselves. This could almost be a gender neutral statement, if not for the context of this article being related directly to female founders. Have humility, so rely on data, not ego. That tends to be an issue as well. A lot of business owners want to save their baby at all costs, and their baby being their business. Sometimes throwing good money after bad it's about ego and not wanting to admit maybe this is the wrong tack. Take me, for instance. I like doing this show. I don't get a lot of people in my chat. I'm definitely not making any money at it in any of the areas that I'm at, but I like doing it. So is it really about ego? And it's more about trying to build a community, because I love talking with people about stuff, particularly business, technology, and society. So again, come on by. I really don't hype it up anywhere. I'm on Twitch, but I'm not really hyperactive on it. I'm on YouTube, but I don't really engage that much. I'm on Twitch, but I don't sell myself when I'm in other people's channels. Literally, I operate as Mayor Watt. I don't operate as ohmTown, and it's to distance myself from selling me and the show on other people's channels. Some people call it stupid, but it's a matter of respect. Plus, as a general rule, you don't hype your own channel up anyway. But when we operate as our persona, whenever we're somewhere else on Twitch, we're kind of selling ourselves. At any rate, have humility, rely on data, not ego. Unfortunately, data can be twisted as well, as I see when I look at stats related to business. Which brings me, let me say this last part. Find your purpose. It helps with perseverance. And so that's where, again, what I'm doing is I'm doing a show that's a daily show for only an hour. Very difficult to find people to buy into it in the long term. So who are you more likely to follow? Somebody that's only here, a flash in a pan for an hour and then they're out? Or are you interested in watching somebody do this for 8 hours out of the day? Well, I'm going to start moving towards that 8 hours out of the day in the coming months. That said, before I go too far, I want to kind of reveal what today's numbers are for business, and we're one article into this, so let's do it now. The Dow kind of it's been trending down, and there's a lot of talk about what the next 6 months to a year is going to lead us into. We get into an article later on about this, but the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped about 100, the S&P 500 about 30, and NASDAQ about 110. Bitcoin is trading all the time. It's down 227. And I've been watching gas prices slowly creep up. I'm guessing that we're probably going to be, we're at 392. And that's the average from AAA across the U.S. I can't speak to other regions. I would be happy to if I can find a reliable source for that information. I just haven't gone looking. And I stopped paying attention to oil prices because they're basically bouncing around. And then when the clique of OPEC Plus decides that they're going to restrain the number of barrels or constrain and induce a little bit of artificial scarcity to prop them the real price up, you end up where it is now, around the high 90s. And this is what's really interesting about this. In an effort to stem the flow of highs and lows. The stock market was created. That was the purpose of the stock market. Now it's to make profit, but it was initially created to level out the highs and lows and to allow people to buy into the future of something, a commodity. The moment that oil started getting traded, it shot up in price because it was at $35 a barrel. So you tell me what actually was the good of trading oil. It's a trick question. There was no reason. Anyway, that's what the status of that is. The stock market, Bitcoin, which is kind of a leading indicator into other crypto, and gas prices, which is a leading indicator into the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. And on top of that, there is a thing called the Producer Price Index, and there's other indexes. I found out recently that there is one that has to do with blacktop. You know, the stuff on the road, the stuff on your driveway. There's an index that tracks blacktop. And I had to get my driveway done prior to the end of the month because the price is going to go up 30%. We'll see if it works. You know, we'll see if that actually happens. I was told that it would. At any rate, let's move on to the next article. The next article is ARC's Cathie Wood issues open letter to the Fed saying it's risking an economic bust. Now, I've read a little bit about this already. This isn't, and then as I go through the news throughout the day, I find articles that are, you know, pretty much identical. But this is over at CNBC as well. And Jeff Cox is the author of the article. And it says the Fed is likely making a mistake in its hardline stance against inflation because it's looking backward. ARC Invest's Cathie Wood said on Monday. In an open letter, Wood suggested the central bank, quote, has shocked not just the U.S., but the world and raised the risks of a deflationary bust. Now, the things that I have read about these statements that were made largely are true. They are looking at the past. That's what they refer to many a time. But I don't believe for an instant that that's all that they are looking at. So it says here, the Fed seems focused on two variables that in our view, and that's in ARC's view, are lagging indicators, downstream inflation, and employment, both of which have been sending conflicting signals and should be calling into question the Fed's unanimous call for higher interest rates, Wood said in a letter posted to the firm's website. Yeah, I find it suspect that it's really hard to find a leading indicator that is based on real numbers as opposed to looking at something and interpreting what it might pose in the future. But the problem with taking a number that is perceived as a leading indicator, which for me, fuel prices are, because you know that when fuel prices go up, everything else goes up as it has to. Everything has to rely on the transfer of a product or a service unless it's online. And then you have to worry about energy costs in another way, which can translate into a leading indicator from the fuel as well, because the fuel the fuel is used to get equipment and people and whatever else involved with the maintenance, updating, etc. of the power grid. Not to mention, in some places, that fuel is coal, and coal prices can accelerate too. At any rate, without getting too far into the weeds, as I am prone to do with associative thinking, it says specifically the consumer price and personal consumption expenditures, there's two different numbers here. One is the CPI and the other one is the PCE, which is rarely heard of in, regular conversation. CPI maybe, but PCE, does anybody even really care about the personal consumption expenditure price index? Because it's really personal. What we expend on isn't necessarily the same as the CPI, which is this massive now index of various things, including gas. Well, anyway, the headline CPI rose 0.1% in August and was up 8.3% year over year, while headline PCE accelerated 0.3% and 6.2%, respectively. So both of these actually are leading indicators. So I agree with ARC. Now, the problem here, though, is that these may be leading indicators, but they are still not really, they're the most leading, as opposed to what really is leading, which is just the raw fuel costs. You could probably base everything off of the raw fuel costs, because as long as the ethic in business is to extract as much wealth from the consumer as humanly possible, including and not limited to stepping on necks to make it so, you're going to always have fuel costs increasing the baseline to everything else. The Federal Reserve interest rate is really all about loans. It's all about the margin, the profit margin that is given to banks so that they can lend money to corporations. That's a completely separate subset. But if somebody wants a loan, then, and really only then, does the Fed interest rate hikes cause a problem. If somebody wants money, right? Not do they want to earn money by providing a product or service, but if they want money from something else for either some secured asset or an unsecured loan or whatever, the only time the Fed really matters is anything that's keyed to it. So while there may be a lot of things, I think the main issue here is gas. It will maintain gas as a leading indicator. CPI be damned, it's a trailing indicator as well. The PCE is a trailing indicator as well, but it's more current than a jobs count and inflation in general, because that number can be manipulated too. So unemployment, payroll growth has decelerated but remains strong, with job gains totaling 263,000 in September as the unemployment rate fell to 3.5, and that's where I'm talking about numbers being manipulated. There is no way that unemployment is 3.5%. That's based on reported numbers of people actually looking for a job, whereas basically people are trying to survive off of savings. And they may be looking for a job, but it's not aggressive in a certain amount of time. Why? Well, I talked about it yesterday. When MBAs take over a business and run the business from business school perspectives, they follow the mandate that the shareholders and stockholders and the executive suite is the sole driver. Not the employees, not the stakeholders, but stockholders and shareholders. But stakeholders is everybody that has an interest in the business, including the employees. But what happens when an MBA takes over a business to steer it, and not somebody that actually maybe is from within and didn't go to business school and has compassion and understanding of the social dynamic and contract of running a business in the world, well, everybody wants to retire at 40. And so you make big bonuses as you leech as much from everybody as possible and give to the fewest number of people. So performance doesn't increase with an MBA. Wages get suppressed by an MBA. And more profits end up in the executive suite and in the stockholders. Well, I've had plenty of conversation with people that started small and ended up big. And for the life of me, I wish I would have documented everything that was said so that I could actually scientifically reinforce my statement that as people become rich, they become sociopathic. As more people have their wealth in the stock market, they become disembodied from the reality of what's going on. If you require more and more profits from a business, you are driving up the price for everything around you. It is a black hole of not global, but societal growth. Might as well just say societal growth, because not everything translates into a global market. Not initially. Start small. Well, it says, but Wood, whose firm manages $14.4 billion in client money across a family of active ETFs, said falling prices for items such as lumber, copper, housing are telling a different story. Well, I hate to break it to you, but all of that went up because of the pandemic. And if you were putting all of your eggs in the basket of lumber staying high and copper staying high and housing staying high, you're asking for trouble. The Fed has approved 3 consecutive interest rate increases of 0.75 percentage point, mostly by unanimous vote, and is expected to okay a 4th when it meets again November 1st or 2nd. Unanimous, really, Wood wrote, could it be that the unprecedented 13-fold increase in interest rates during the last 6 months, likely 16-fold come November 2nd, has shocked not just the U.S. but the world and raised the risks of a deflationary bust. Yeah, I think she's off track. And business is what's causing all of this. And it's unrelenting march towards inequality between the C-suite, the stockholders, and the working class that actually power it. Let's move on to the next article. So this next article is a lawyer was disbarred after email falsely claims he is dead. I'm going to hurry up and jump into this article. It's Deborah Kassens-Weiss over at abajournal.com. A California lawyer has been disbarred after someone used his email address to inform ethics regulators that he had died. The California Supreme Court approved the disbarment of Donald Martin Stone last month, and the order became final October 1st, and Reuters has a story about it. The email was sent to a deputy trial counsel investigating Stone in response to an out-of-office automatic reply. Quote, I saw this and I don't know what it is, the unsigned September 2021 email said. Donald passed months ago. End quote. The state bar investigator said in a declaration that she visited Stone's home at a new address to confirm whether he had died, and the man answered the door and identified himself as Stone but declined to answer other questions. So Stone missed 4 bar court appearances, including his ethics trial, the bar said. According to the amended statement of facts, the bar sought disbarment for failure to appear and failure to seek to set aside the default judgment, which was a state bar had sought to discipline Stone for failing to disclose his no contest plea to a petty theft misdemeanor for stealing from a Los Angeles Sears store in 1995, according to the state's bar. Wow. So that came back to haunt him, that he was actually busted for a misdemeanor. that actually calls into question the ethics of everything that he has done. So I'll be curious if there's anything that comes of it beyond this. Let's move on to the next article, and that one is in the Reality Hacker channel. I have a renewed zest for VR, and it comes on the heels of the Pico VR 4, which I put in an order for. I really don't like wires. I would prefer the Index. It is native to Steam, so I thought that it would be well supported. So I decided to take the risk and get the Pico VR 4. And it says here, VR modding monthly, heaps of AAA Unreal Engine games soon to be unlocked for VR, according to this August 2022 article. For VR enthusiasts, the idea of picking up a brand new AAA flat game, pressing a button and then magically, flat game as in it's just on the screen, flat game. Sorry, I don't know why that didn't register. Pressing a button and then magically being taken into the game in full 6 degree of freedom VR natively in the engine if they wanted to. Seems more like a thing of science fiction than reality. No, it's reality hacking. And the author says that they would certainly thought that until master modder Preydog started to make the seemingly impossible a reality. So this article is over at Road to VR. Oh, I have to wait like 10 to 20 days for the Pico VR to show up. But I did buy battery packs to extend its life because it only has a 3-hour battery, even though it's a 4K plus display. It's going to be amazing. No wires, PC VR. I'm all over it. Anyway, Brian Tate is the author at Road to VR for this article. And it says, this has been a huge month for VR modding. In this month's issue, we're going to talk about one of the biggest breakthroughs in flat to VR modding history that will open up a whole new world of VR ports. And we'll take a look inside some incredible new mods that have come out or have taken steps forward in development. So Preydog's Universal Unreal Engine VR Injector mod. Taking anything from Unreal and turning it into a 3D universe is going to be huge. So you better start going out and buying your at least RTX 30 series cards or the AMD equivalent thereof. Let's see if there's something that they talk about in this article. It says Stray, Jedi Fallen Order, which I think would be great. Grounded, which will kind of put me maybe over the edge of creepy. But I'll dig it. I'll play it. Satisfactory. I've never really played this game. I own it, but I've never really played it. But as soon as it's VR, I will probably end up playing it. Seems like it's a lot more fun. And there's 2 whole pages of this article. So let me transfer over to the second page and continue with the list. Call of the Sea VR, Half-Life 2 VR mod, Neon White VR, which I haven't played, Trombone Champ VR. I heard that Trombone Champ is funny. Jedi Knight Outcast, Jedi Academy, Bendy and the Ink Machine in VR is going to make my kid very happy. Raft VR would be amazing. And Long Dark VR. There's a whole lot in this article, so definitely go over and read more of the minutia of this article. You will enjoy it. And Road to VR is basically a one-stop shop for everything VR. One second. The next article, and I'm just going to get into it, is over in Smack Talk, and that's because the PC market got hammered in Q3, but Apple saw massive Mac shipment growth. This is on the heels of a couple of articles a couple of days ago, as a matter of fact, that kind of poo-pooed what Apple is and that it had horrible Mac shipment and that the Mac Pro from 12 years ago was poorly received and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, Apple's Mac business growth is a giant high point in a PC market downturn, with a 40.2% year-on-year increase in shipments for Q3 2022 against a sea of shrinkage from other major PC vendors. And I hate the comparison because Apple's a vertical. Straight to the top. Apple does everything from beginning to end. PC is every single seller, carving out little slices. Yet the Mac business model is the vertical. They make everything from stem to stern. Although, they outsource it to companies to produce it. It's their product. Meanwhile, everybody else is struggling to get a piece of the market, and they're working really hard to do the same new every two leap. There's nothing revolutionary coming from the PC market, right? And you can't say VR, because VR is a completely different market. With the right drivers, VR can run on anything. It's not bound to a particular market, but it's getting, some really good leaps and bounds. Now we're getting wireless direct PC. It used to be this massive umbilical. I still have the damage on my ceiling from the little stickers that were holding up the umbilical that was trying to kill me daily. Anyway, the article is over at appleinsider.com, and Malcolm Owen is the author of this article. And they're going to go into greater detail about it. I'm sure that you can go over there and check it all out, but they always have, it's not just Apple Insider, but whenever there is a discussion about performance of companies, Apple is in there, but it's not Apple. Apple isn't, the same type of PC. It isn't built by a menagerie of parts into the same vendor list, right? So like Lenovo gets a white label power supply, but Apple's is custom made. HP gets that same Lenovo power supply. It might be from a different maker. It might be from the same maker. It's just white label. Dell, the same thing. Asus, the same thing. So many others, the same thing. And when you have 5 companies, 4 of which are PC, the 5th one is Apple, and Apple has 10,000 third quarter 22 shipments, and it's better than Asus, nearing Dell, and 2,000 away from HP. And I wonder why Lenovo has so much. I'm really curious if Lenovo is more about what PCs, consumer or everything. Well, suffice it to say that Apple is carrying its own weight. And they have a massive profit margin. That's why they are so well regarded. And PC is just getting shredded, 5% margins and stuff. It's not that great. But Apple only holds a 13.5%. Oh gosh, that's quite amazing considering it started out at 3% back in the day. Well, back in the late 80s. Anyway, actually, strike that. Late 90s is when it had only like 3% margin or market share. Okay, well, anyway, that's enough for that. I think that's enough smack talk. Let's move on to the next article. This one is in Tabletop Nights. Wild Hearts feels primed to offer Monster Hunter its first real competition. Now, I couldn't get into Monster Hunter all that much, but I think that maybe the wildness of Wild Hearts might actually attract me. RPGsite.net is the source of this, and James Galizio is the author of this. It says here in the article, sitting down for my chance to preview Wild Hearts, they were struck by how the hunting action genre has almost well and truly been dominated by Capcom's flagship series. back when the PlayStation Vita was a supported platform in Japan, it felt like every Japanese company under the sun had to try their shot at a game to take on the king of the genre. So I don't know if they're going to have many things that are within the game itself. These look like stills. But if this is what the game is going to look like, and it's fully rendered open world hunting game, and the creatures are more, well, there's a lot of verticality, and there's more, I don't know, well, I'll use their word. Their word is wild. If the creatures are more wild and not so identifiable, you know, oh, it looks like a dinosaur, like Ark. And Monster Hunter wasn't that particularly crazy for me, at least, from what I saw. I think that Wild sorry, I think that Wild Hearts would definitely I don't know, pull me in. It's definitely one of those things where the colors look vibrant. There's a haze in the valleys and at the sunset here in this picture. It looks amazing. But I hope it's fully immersive, and if it's made in Unity, maybe, or Unreal Engine, I should say. If it's made in Unreal, then maybe I'll be able to play this in VR. That would be spectacular. It's hard to get a feel for the locations of Wild Hearts after only a few hours, and going off of only one of the game's 4 regions. EA states that each region is meant to symbolize a season, with the section that press got to play representing spring. Although the game isn't properly open world, each zone itself is plenty large and open in and of itself. I hope that they make it open world, and I want base building in a game like this. You know, let the monsters come and try and eliminate me. That's fine. So let's move on to the next article. Every once in a while, I have my screen scrolled down a little bit. The next article is in the Warcrafters channel. Pardon me 1 second while I throw this into Nightbot and Showbot. Fight a monstrous spider train when Choo-Choo Charles releases this December. I really wish that it would have launched for Halloween, but this is in the Warcrafters channel. It's sourced from PC Gamer. I'm not going to even bother with my snippet in ohmTown. I'll just jump over to the article. Jonathan Bolding is the author, and it says here, spider train, run away or you'll feel the pain. There is a YouTube video about Choo-Choo Charles. It's release date trailer. Feel free to go and check it out. But remember this nightmare fuel, says the article? Well, it's finally coming out. Train-based open-world survival horror game Choo-Choo Charles will make its debut on December 9th, 2022 via Steam. It'll come to consoles at a later date. They first reported, that's PCGamer.com, first reported on Charles, who, to be clear, is an evil train locomotive with a clownish nightmare face and spider legs last October. At the time, gifs of the train horror went viral all of the normal places. People post images and videos of train horrors in video games. At the time, they speculated that Charles may or may not lay eggs, you know, like a spider. Well, folks, apparently monster eggs are in the trailer. Yikes. This will be exciting to play. Maybe I'll play it. I don't know. One of the many games that I hope to play in the Late Night Geeks show. So I am a big fan of the Hellraiser movie. I say movie. One movie. is pretty much the embodiment of Hellraiser to me, and that's Hellraiser. But there are several others. So now there's one on Hulu. I spoke about it briefly a couple of days ago. This is in the continuity report. It's sourced from Rotten Tomatoes, and it's all Hellraiser movies ranked by Tomato Meter. So let's take a look at it. This is Pinhead. If you have never heard of Pinhead, Pinhead is the lead in Hellraiser. You should go and check it out. I can't say anything other than that. But anyway, all Hellraiser movies ranked by Tomato Meter. I don't know if there's a full source as to who wrote this whole article, but Alex Vo wrote this little intro here. Clive Barker may not have as many movie adaptations as fellow horror author Stephen King, but at least Barker's directorial debut, 1987's Hellraiser, is leagues above King's single directing effort, Maximum Overdrive. If you've never seen either of these two movies, you should watch them. Maximum Overdrive is interesting, but Hellraiser really kind of, I don't know, drives home the point that Barker was a better director. Anyway, you see what I did there? Yeah, it gets the point. Pinhead. Anyway, so Hellraiser is number one. There was a 2022 Hulu version of it with a completely different everything, which is number 2 in this list. I have not seen the new Hellraiser. I really don't like it being called Hellraiser, because now it's kind of confusing. I'm not really worried about the new Hellraiser. I want to see it, but people are calling it Disney Hellraiser. I don't know. When you have sculpting of flesh, it's a little bit not Disney. Hellbound Hellraiser 2 is number 3. Hellraiser 3 Hell on Earth is number 4. Hellraiser Judgment is number 5. Hellraiser Bloodline is number 6. Hellraiser Inferno is number 7. Hellraiser Deader, Deader, not you're in debt, but Deader, is number 8. Hellraiser Hellseeker is number 9. And these are all in a wacky chronological order. Hellraiser Hellworld is number 10. And Hellraiser Revelations is number 11. They actually give a critic's consensus, a synopsis, who's starring in it, and who it was directed by. And I think there's no real consensus as to director either, other than the original Hellraiser and Clive Barker is number 1. And that's really where it stops for me, folks. The others just come across as fluff to me, but there's a fanatical following, that's on par. That's what a fan is. So let's move on to the next article. And this next article is in the Daily News Show. That's this show. Coalition representing 24 million workers demands Senate vote on PRO Act before midterms. So this is the Protecting the Rights to Organize Act, which would, it says here in the article snippet, level the playing field for these workers and show people which side of the Senate Democrats are on. I have one more article after this one, but this is a commondreams.org article by Kenny Stansel. And I really do believe that now is the time where Congress can support the people and really reveal which side butters their bread, so to speak. Because if they don't allow people to organize to form a union, and they have to risk their lives and livelihood to actually find equality and equity in the workplace, well, we know that politicians are owned and not representing the people, because this is 24 million workers that are standing in unison, i.e. union, to say even in this right to work environment, we're being basically turned into, eventually, if the wages stay low, we're going to end up in minimum wage territory. A lot of people are already. A lot of people are getting paid less. And let's not get into the origin of tipping. A minimum wage job was supposed to be for, high school kids to learn how to work in the workplace. It wasn't designed to be the status quo position for people to try and raise a family. But arguably, there aren't enough jobs out there for which someone could try and raise a family with. It's just not going to happen. Not with the cost of living continuing to grow up, but salaries being stagnant. When CEO pay is 1,500% higher than the entry-level position, that's still getting, and it's not even the entry-level position, it's the median salary is stagnating while CEO pay is going up through the roof. Again, we go back to the MBAs. By the way, I'm allowed to say that. I have an MBA. Yeah, I was going to go into global finance, but this is the kind of stuff that I saw a decade and a half ago. So I'm really not into, well, it's a decade ago. Because I was actually boots on the ground. I ran my own businesses. I was self-employed, and I saw all of this. And I didn't like it. I decided to move and get my degrees because where I moved to, they didn't care what I knew. They wanted to know about my school. Hey, do you have this? Do you have that? I didn't really agree with it, but I had to play that game. Now I don't want to play that game. I think that entrepreneurs are really where it's at. I think the workers are really where it's at. Business school, not so much. It teaches a mantra that I don't buy in, and even the person that said it didn't buy into it. Now he's dead, but anyway. There needs to be a social component to being an employer. There needs to be a social component and a professional component to being an employee. And in no cases should wages be below subsistence, and that's how it is. Particularly when you have the consumer price index going through the roof, gasoline going through the roof, food going through the roof, clothing going through the roof, etc., yet the CEO pulls up in a $150,000 Ferrari. Let's move on to the next article. This one is in The Word in Tech, and it's titled, Subjecting Workers to Webcam Monitoring Violates Privacy, Dutch Court Rules. A Florida headquartered company has been ordered to pay about 75,000 euro, or $73,000, in compensation and other fees after firing a Netherlands-based remote worker who refused to keep their webcam on all day. I think it's Netherlands Times reports the company Choo-Choo, CHETU, said the unnamed employee was required to attend a virtual classroom with their webcam turned on for the entire day and their screen remotely monitored. Kiss my butt. But when the employee refused, saying that leaving their webcam on for 9 hours a day made them feel uncomfortable and was an invasion of their privacy, and the company dismissed them, citing refusal to work and insubordination. Kiss my butt. Insubordination. I hate that crap. The same as other duties as assigned. No. My duty should be enumerated, and other duties as assigned is a violation of the contract because there's no meeting of the minds. I can't agree to a line that is nebulous in its very nature. Leaving a camera on is surveillance. It's spying. It's creepy, dystopian crap. Anyway, this article is by John Porter by TheVerge.com, a Florida-based company, Choo-Choo, forced their employee in the Netherlands to be monitored for 9 hours out of the day. The court has ordered Choo-Choo to pay its former employee a substantial sum in damages. $75,000 isn't that much. You know, it's probably an annual salary, right, of $75,000. But there's all kinds of other stuff. This includes compensation of $48,000, roughly 2,700 euro or $2,600 in unpaid salary, and over 8,000 euro or 7,750 for wrongful termination, which is nothing. The company also needs to pay the employee for their unused vacation days. As TechCrunch notes, firing an employee for not turning on their webcam may be more palatable in an at-will jurisdiction like Florida, but it seems employees under the jurisdiction of ECHR, that's the European Convention on Human Rights, have a lot more protection. So this company will probably learn only one lesson, which is hire people from Florida. That way you can abuse them as much as possible. And that's it for today's show. I'm going to sign off. I'll see you tomorrow. Didn't even make it 50 minutes today. That's okay. Maybe I can bring some more. Maybe I can soapbox more. I don't know. At any rate, I am Mayor Watt. This is the ohmTown Daily News Show. I didn't say it at the beginning, but it's October 10th, 2022. Maybe I should do an intro. Nah, it's too late. My time machine's broken. I'll see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. Bye-bye.